Hi, it's Marcus again, and at this point of the website we want to talk about a question that nearly every client that I've had in over 20 years has asked me, and that is, do I have a case? And sometimes that very simple question is often answered by some very simple answers to some other questions. For example, how serious are your injuries? I mean, if your injuries are minor, then the chances are you may not have a case. On the other hand, if your injuries are serious, and those injuries are likely to progress and create more complex problems for you, well, that leads you to conclude that you may very well have a case. Now, before you get to that, though, you might ask yourself a couple of other questions that will help in this decision, and that is, were your injuries produced by someone else's negligence? We call that in the law, we call that liability or causation, and that is, were your injuries the product of someone else's negligence? And negligence is defined a lot of different ways. For example, in a medical malpractice case, negligence is defined as the failure to use or otherwise deviate from the standard of care. In simple cases like car accident cases or slip and falls, nursing home cases, sometimes negligence is as simple as, did someone do something that they shouldn't have done? Or did they fail to do something that they should have done that caused your injuries? Now, if you produced your injuries, it's likely that you don't have a case. Let's take a simple car accident, for example. If someone failed to stop at a stop sign, or if someone ran a red light and caused your injuries, they are liable. It's their negligence, and therefore you probably do have a case. On the other hand, if you ran the red light and you caused the accident, you probably don't have a case. So you start by looking at the severity of your injuries. Do you have some significant injuries that are going to be complicated to resolve? Are you the victim of someone else's negligence? In other words, did they cause your accident? So the severity of your injuries combined with who was responsible for causing those injuries is a good start. Now, a lot of times that leads to some questions about, well, you know, I had some injuries before this accident. And in Florida, it's important to know that you can make a claim for an aggravation of a pre-existing condition. For example, if you previously hurt your back on the job, maybe you even had surgery to your back, but you got into a car accident and it produced additional injuries to your back. In Florida, you have the right to make a claim for the aggravation of pre-existing injuries. And that's true in many of the other states that we practice in as well. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a claim if you have some pre-existing injuries. Now, once you've satisfied yourself that you've got significant injuries, and you've satisfied yourself that your injuries were not the product of your own negligence, but someone else's negligence, then you get to the question, and again, I get asked this question all the time, do I need a lawyer? And the answer to that is literally no, you don't. You can negotiate your claim with an insurance representative, and you can attempt to resolve it yourself. We've found, however, that oftentimes our clients don't have the tools, the resources, or the experience to maximize their recovery. And so a lot of times, particularly in the more serious injury cases, I'm comfortable telling them that a lawyer will help them achieve more for them. In fact, we know that statistics have shown, the insurance industry statistics, their own statistics have shown, that they pay between 100 and 200% more in cases where a lawyer is involved, because they don't hold as much advantage when they're negotiating against a lawyer, presuming that the lawyers know what they're doing, of course, as they might with somebody that doesn't have as much experience. So the best thing to do is to look at your case, determine the severity of your injuries, determine whether or not they're likely to progress and continue to impact your life, determine whether or not your injuries are the result of someone else's negligence, and then talk to a lawyer. The consultations are free. And that gets me to this. Listen, this website's great, technology is great, but it's not a substitute for speaking directly to a lawyer. And you can do that anytime by picking up the phone and calling us. We'll talk to you for free, and we'll help you work through this. While we're on that subject, listen, if you want to try to evaluate what your case might be worth in the event that you do want to attempt to negotiate it with the insurance company, if you click back and go back to the home page and click on What's My Case Worth, you'll see me talking about that. We'll provide you some forms and some tools that you can use to get an approximate value of what your case might be worth. But again, that's not really a substitute for direct contact, but it'll at least get you started and hopefully help you make good decisions, because if you've been injured as a result of someone else's negligence, we don't want you to be the victim twice. So we're happy to help you if you need us. Just give us a call.